We need to find a suitable team and ask them. It seems like they're all merchants from SAO. Parker replied, "For the most part, that's true." The merchant group observed the approaching people and began murmuring amongst themselves. Isn't that the Zenonist guild from SAO? They pondered, speculating amongst themselves. I think so. They're wearing the Fire Phoenix emblem and their signature black uniforms. Hopefully, the Zenonist guild will accept our request. Parker looked around and suggested, "There are a lot of people here. Perhaps we should collaborate with the largest merchant group." Byron agreed with the idea. "Yes, I completely agree. This is the perfect opportunity to leverage the reputation of the Ignis Guild." While everyone was searching for the fifth team, SDO closed his eyes, suddenly turning his head in one direction as if sensing something strange. He listened silently and sensed everything around him. A small, barefoot figure was quietly approaching. Strangely, it was a young girl in ragged, dirty clothes. The girl looked up at SDO and spoke. "Why don't you have a star?" The little girl's older brother gestured towards Mabian and said, "Everyone is born with a unique star, a star that reveals their destiny and guides their path." The little girl added, explaining further, "Our merchant family, even the other mercenaries, everyone has a star." "But why?" The little girl, curious and slightly concerned, asked her older brother, "Why don't you have a star?" Mabian crossed his arms, lost in thought, then blurted out, "This kid's sharp." The little girl looked at Mabian, stating firmly, "You have a very ugly star. Look at its jagged shape. It surely signifies a life full of hardship." Mabian couldn't believe what he was hearing. He scoffed, pointing at himself with a grimace. "Me? Look again. Is it really that ugly?" Someone in the group intervened. "Calm down. She's talking about your star, not you." Mubayan felt no comfort whatsoever. On the contrary, he grew even more frustrated, roaring in indignation. "No, I don't believe it. That's impossible. My star is meant to be huge, magnificent, glorious." Parker followed, completely helpless against Mubayan's rage. "Please calm down," he pleaded. The little girl looked at Parker with admiration and longing. "Angel, there's a tiny star, but it shines with such a gentle, warm light. Are you a guardian angel, a protector of everyone?" Her innocent words stunned Parker. He smiled, gently correcting her. "No, I'm not an angel. I'm a bird." The little girl still didn't understand. "A bird?" Parker spread his magnificent wings for her to see, then laughed. "We're just people with wings, just like everyone else, except we have wings." The little girl looked on in wonder at the magnificent wings. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at Parker. "But you really look like an angel." Gazing at the gentle light emanating from his star, I thought to myself, he must have helped so many people. That's amazing. Suddenly, a man approached from behind, letting out a hearty laugh. He explained that the child was a wish come true, thanks to the power of the star. Then he affectionately called out, "Ajanip." The little girl quickly ran to his side. He smiled kindly and greeted them. "Hello, I'm Russell, the head of the Parima Trading Company." SDO politely extended his hand, shaking hands with Russell and introducing himself. "I'm SDO, president of the Ignis Guild." "Ignis SDO," Russell exclaimed in surprise. The president? His eyes widened, and he thought to himself, the new president of the Ignis Guild, rumored to have the ability to understand people's hearts. This is a fateful encounter, to meet the main character of that legendary story. At that moment, Russell excitedly introduced the little girl. "This is Ajanip, my granddaughter. She was also said to be among those who had made a pact with the stars. She is the most exceptional among the star pact in this desert." Parker politely asked, "Forgive me for interrupting, Captain, but what is a star pact?" Russell seemed surprised by the boy's question. It seemed this was the first time Parker had heard of this concept since arriving in the desert. Mubayan, knowledgeable about the Turkish desert, offered a suggestion. "Perhaps they call talented astrologers star pact." The experienced captain then explained in detail that Mubayan's idea was close, but not entirely accurate. The star pact are not simply ordinary astrologers. They possess a special ability able to directly hear the whispers of the celestial stars. In his mind, these people seemed to have a special connection to the souls of the stars. Therefore, he explained that they were called by that special name, because they looked as if they had made a sacred pact with a soul from the stars. Regardless, they are incredibly valuable and rare individuals. At this, Russell chuckled, his large hand affectionately ruffling his granddaughter's hair. Anjanip said she would meet extraordinary people if we sought help from the job hunters. But I never expected to be fortunate enough to meet the guild master himself. Sayo spoke up, "So, Mr. Russell, You didn't come here to hire mercenaries? He replied. We've already found an excellent team of warriors. Just then, a voice called out from behind him. Huh? Hold on. A man waved, adding a surprising remark. Hey, the black-haired kid from the XNIS Guild. Russell was taken aback, thinking to himself, Kid. Rossmark appeared with 2 companions. He flashed a bright smile, greeting him warmly. It was a rare sight, indeed. We meet again. The merchants exclaimed in astonishment. The Ballistic Guild. Jose Max waved his hand, laughing heartily. Our guild disbanded. What's so surprising? His tone remained casual as he mentioned it, as if it wasn't his own guild. It's completely gone. The guild leader has run off. Everyone gasped. Deserted? How could he? Jose Mark stepped forward, explaining the situation. Actually, we're just a group of mercenaries working together, not an official organization. We used to serve in the same squad. His 2 companions nodded repeatedly, confirming Jose Mark's words. They both affirmed that what Jose Mark said was completely true. The 2 groups stood facing each other, tension filling the air. Anzanip nervously huddled closer to Ratsio. Estio broke the silence. I didn't expect to see you here. Josh Mark, formerly known as Caller Fuffa, replied. Indeed. To be honest, we run into each other quite regularly. Considering... Wait a minute. He suddenly noticed Estio's blindfold and asked curiously, Is your eye injured? Estio replied succinctly, something like that. Josh Mark exclaimed, Good heavens! Losing your sight as a rookie must be tough. Do you think your sight will ever recover? Josh Mark clicked his tongue, his voice dripping with mockery. To think, a member of the prestigious Ignis Guild, slumming it out here in the Turkish desert. You've really fallen from grace, haven't you? Byron stood behind him, her face grim, clearly displeased by the insults directed at her guild. Perhaps her displeasure was a little too obvious, because when Josh Mark's group noticed her, they shrieked like children who had seen a ghost. What is that? Why are you with this terrifying woman? Byron glared at them, her voice ice cold. Watch your tongue. The group trembled, meekly replying, Why yes, ma'am. You're the mercenaries hired by the Parama Trading Company, correct? He replied, Yeah, that's right. We just received our payment. What about you? Russell anxiously waved his hands. No, that's not it. Don't say that. I don't have that kind of money. Josh Mark sighed, his face irritated. A guild master without any money? Stio quickly stepped in to smooth things over, helping the struggling merchant leader, Russell. Russell turned around, a puzzled look on his face, and asked, What's going on? Stio frankly stated his intentions. We need to reach a Turkish village deep in the desert. Russell offered, We can travel with you. He inquired, As hired mercenaries, perhaps? Stio seemed taken aback, stunned for a moment. He honestly admitted, Actually, I don't have the funds to pay you all. Stio reassured Russell, There's no need to pay us. Russell still seemed hesitant, uncertain. He asked again, Are you sure about that? Members of Ignis working without asking for payment. Byron spoke up, It's all right. He added, As long as we can reach the Turkish village. Parker smiled gently. He said, We always follow the captain's decisions. Mabian crossed his arms, asking so. He asked directly, What's your decision? Can we go with you? Russell cleared his throat, a hint of worry on. However, the Parama Trading Company never makes a request without expecting something substantial in return. Why? Because Chairman Jackson, the head of the company, firmly believes that there's no gain without sacrifice. That is the true merchant's philosophy. If we reach the village safely, you'll all share in the profits. Under the scorching, relentless sun of the Sahara Desert, Chairman Jackson's voice boomed with authority. Now, to all of you who have placed your trust and chosen to travel with the Parama Trading Company, I entrust you with this responsibility. Finally, the group achieved their long-held dream of joining a large merchant caravan, surrounded by wagons laden with goods and supplies. They looked around and saw powerful elephants pulling carts. There were even camels loaded down with heavy packs. Parker was incredibly excited. Wow, those camels. But before he could finish, Chairman Jackson cut him off. They're not for us. Parker looked confused. In this vast desert, if we don't use camels for transport, then what will we use, buddy? Spit it out. The rugged-looking man didn't say a word, just turned around and pointed in a direction. We'll ride that. Amidst the golden sand desert, a colossal creature with a hard exoskeleton was slowly approaching. Someone stammered in astonishment. That thing is quite the unique choice. Lasso reassured everyone. They're very gentle and trustworthy. Don't worry too much. Haven't all of you ridden a horse before? Looking at the enormous beast before them, the group couldn't help but feel a little scared. SDO, blindfolded, was even more curious since she couldn't see a thing. Parker even exclaimed, "This is completely different from riding a horse." Lasso smiled kindly. "You'll all get used to it." SDO cautiously stepped forward, like a blind man touching an elephant. SDO reached out and touched the creature in front of him, thinking, "It's really sturdy. I wonder if it's wearing armor." Because he was touching a living creature, SDO could read its thoughts and feelings. "Likes you. I like hearing that." SDO felt a little confused. "So it likes me?" SDO turned to his traveling companion, Parker, and asked, "What kind of creature is this?" Parker scratched his head, stammering, It's too big to be called an animal." Hesitating for a moment, he replied, "It's a crab." A desert crab, Master SDO, standing before gigantic crab, that even SDO himself couldn't imagine the size of. He exclaimed in astonishment, "A crab?" Parker raised his hand to explain. "They usually live in the ocean, but apparently there are some that live in the desert too. It's truly massive. Riding it shouldn't be a problem. It's just, its appearance is a bit unusual." He observed the crabs being distributed to each person one by one and said, "This crab will be your mount." A green desert crab with a dark shell. "It looks magnificent." Parker shifted his gaze to the crab assigned to him. "I got a hairy desert crab with an emerald green color." Mubayin's face darkened, lost in thought for a long moment. "This is quite a dilemma. I've never ridden a crab before." The burly caravan leader led his granddaughter away, turning back to offer him a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, just get in the saddle and hold on tight." Mubayin turned around, sighing deeply. "Even if I wanted to, it would be difficult, because this saddle is completely tilted to one side." A crab approached. A clear voice rang out from atop the crab. Byron spoke with disdain. "You're educated, aren't you? Crabs are supposed to walk sideways. But the funny thing is this crab that you're riding is moving straight forward." This makes Mobian's jaw drop in astonishment. "You just said crabs move sideways. So why is that one going straight ahead like that?" Byron furrows his brow, showing contempt for Mobian's shallow knowledge. "That's a pebble crab, a completely different species. Isn't this common knowledge?" Mobian truly knows nothing about this crab. He spaces out, slowly sitting down on the crab's back. Parker also looks apprehensive, worried. He looks around and asks, "Is everyone on board?" Seeing that SDO hasn't gotten on a crab yet, Parker leans down and asks the guild leader, "Are you all right?" SDO turns his head and replies softly, "I'm fine." Parker smiles and asks again, "Really?" Then he suddenly blurts out something that makes SDO jump as it strikes a nerve. "Are you scared?" Parker talked to himself, gesturing wildly and laughing. After a moment, "I guess so, I'm a little apprehensive too. You're also blindfolded. They say not being able to see makes things even scarier." SDO remained silent. Parker suggested an idea. "Do you want to ride with Niju? These giant crabs are huge. Multiple people can ride on one at the same time." Just then, SDO heard the crab's inner voice. It said, "Don't go." He lifted his head slightly, his face full of surprise. Suddenly, he felt his body being lifted off the ground. The crab had used its claw to pick up SDO and lift him high. It whispered, "I like you riding on me." Then it placed SDO down on the seat next to Anjanet. Relieved to no longer be dangling in the air, SDO let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He sensed the presence of the person beside him. He asked Jenny how she was doing. The little girl, holding the reins tightly, softly said, "This is Azure, my companion." The girl beamed, boasting, "This is the first time I've seen Poco pick someone up on his own. He only picks me up with his claws, because I've ridden him since I was little. Since you can't see, let me hold the reins for you, Shio." "Don't mention it, thank you." And Jei and I started controlling the giant crab and warned, "It's going to be a bit bumpy. Hold on tight." The group started on their way to the exorcism temple, but were suddenly stopped by the sound of vomiting, coming from somewhere. It was Parker. Despite being of the bird tribe, he didn't have a very strong stomach. While retching, Parker said, "I'm getting motion sickness." Mr. Record Keeper came over and comforted him. "Are you all right, Parker?" Parker honestly replied, "Not at all. Every time his crab moves, I feel like my insides are all jumbled up." Behind them, Anzenith and SDO turned a corner. The young girl looked up at SDO with wide eyes and asked curiously, "I have a question. You're not human, are you?" Anzenith answered honestly, "I realized that the first time I met you. You're the only person I've seen who doesn't possess a star." SDO smiled and asked in return, "What do you mean by not having a star?" The girl patiently explained, "Everyone is born with their own unique star. It shines in the vast night sky. She looked up at the twilight sky, imagining a universe filled with twinkling stars. Depending on a person's soul, the light of that star can be bright or faint. They come in countless shapes, and sometimes they are even omens of dangers that'll befall their owner. SDO's eyes widened in understanding. So, that's astrology? Under the crimson sunset. Anzenith nodded in agreement. Exactly, SDO whispered, his voice filled with a touch of bewilderment. Having no star, it's like I don't truly exist in this world. After a moment of silence, the boy asked the little girl, "So you're not afraid of me?" The little girl gave a bright smile and replied naturally, "How could a cute Poco like you be a bad guy?" Everyone stopped to make camp and rest. They built a fire and cooked soup, the fragrant aroma spreading everywhere. Parker held a bowl of soup, eating heartily. As everyone gathered around the crackling fire for dinner, Anzenip suddenly spoke up. "By the way, Mr. Angel, what's your name?" Parker smiled and replied, "I'm Bernie Parker. Just call me Parker." The little girl wondered, "But isn't Bernie your name?" Parker smiled gently and began to explain about his name. "Well, this is a custom of our bird tribe. Perhaps you don't know. Normally, a person's name would include their given name and family name. But the bird tribe is different. We use the village name in place of the family name." Anzenip curiously asked, "Village name? What kind of village name is it?" Parker wanted to explain things more clearly for everyone to understand. "That's right. Whenever a child is born, the bird tribe holds a special ceremony. During this sacred ceremony, the elder bestows a name upon the child. Therefore, the village name is always placed before each person's given name. So, Parker is actually my real name." While Parker and Ingenup were engrossed in conversation, Josh Mark was suddenly captivated by something. He exclaimed, "Huh." A cute cat walked over, meowing softly. It settled down beside the warm fire and licked its paws. Josh Mark looked at the cat curiously. "A cat? Where did it come from?" Ma Bien, standing nearby, replied succinctly, "That's Master Styo's pet cat." Immediately, Josh Mark tried to ingratiate himself, reaching out to pet the cat. "Here, kitty kitty." Ma Bien glanced at him warningly. "Be careful. If you say anything disrespectful to that cat, something unfortunate might happen." But Josh Mark seemed unconcerned. "Yeah, it's just a little cat. How much damage could it possibly do?" Exasperated by Joss Mack's naivety, Ma Bien said coldly, "Don't say I didn't warn you." Joss Mack turned, looked at Ma Bien, and laughed. "I thought you were a brave warrior, but you're such a coward. Afraid of a little cat? You'd probably faint if you ever saw a desert monster." Ma Bien remained silent. He turned away and muttered, "That cat is more terrifying than any desert monster." Ma Bien's reaction only reinforced Joss Mack's belief that Ma Bien was a coward, afraid of his own shadow. He sneered, "I bet you've never even seen a desert monster." Ma Bien replied coldly, "No." Joss Mack nodded, a smirk playing on his lips. "Neither have we. Just the thought of those mysterious desert monsters." He started to put on airs. "Rumor has it those monsters are incredibly ferocious, utterly savage. Starting tomorrow, things could get extremely dangerous. Be prepared." Mu Bayan pondered thoughtfully, murmuring the word, "dangerous." He fell silent. A bloody scene from his past flashing through his mind. Josh Mark curiously interjected, "Hey, I heard you're not even a member of the guild. So why are you sticking to that kid like glue?" Mu Bayan's reply seemed completely unrelated to the question. "This has been bugging me." Josh Mark looked perplexed. Mu Bayan turned and asked, "Hold on, let me ask you something first. Why do you keep treating him like a child?" Josh Mark turned away, scratching his cheek awkwardly. "I heard he's just a rookie. Barely joined the guild." Mu Bayan wondered, "So?" Josh Mark suddenly recalled his previous encounter with Sushio. He recalled their previous encounter. The boy's appearance hardly that of a true warrior. Not only low-ranked, but he also seemed utterly clueless about swordsmanship and magic. Wasn't he just a naive kid? Suddenly, he fell into deep thought. Slowly, a question formed in his mind. How on earth did he even join the guild? A thought struck Josh Mark. Wait a minute. Startled, he turned to Ma Bien with a stunned expression. Could it be through some connection? Could he be from a noble family? Ma Bien just sighed, 3 parts exasperated, 7 parts weary. It's truly impossible to have a normal conversation with those who have such bizarre ways of thinking. Without another word, he turned and patted the shoulder of the man beside him. "Go to sleep." Josh Mark jolted awake from the hard pad on his shoulder. His soul nearly left his body. A few days later, amidst the vast and endless desert, a voice called out, "This arduous journey is nearing its end." Parker looked around, then exclaimed in awe, I've always wondered what desert monsters look like, but the reality before us is just a vast, endless sea of sand. The expedition leader let out a hearty laugh, saying in astonishment, even if you get closer, you still won't be able to see most of them. Parker, his head full of questions, wondered, "Why is that, sir?" The group's fire flickered continuously in the stillness of the desert night. The older man slowly explained. Most of the monsters lurk beneath the sand. Giant sandworms, deathstalkers, and many other terrifying creatures. They travel by burrowing through the thick layers of sand. Parker took a sharp breath, lamenting, "This is terrifying." Mabian looked up, adding, as if to frighten Parker, "It would certainly be hard to spot them if they're moving underground." Suddenly, Smart, sitting opposite them, spoke up. "But the most dangerous enemies are the desert phantoms, the blue sand spirits." A curious voice piped up. "Blue sand?" He warmed his hands over the fire as he slowly replied. "The azure sands. A mysterious place often whispered about in chilling tales of the spirit world." Josh Mark immediately elaborated, asserting it was merely an illusion, a fleeting glimpse in a moment of time. The ethereal azure sands will suddenly appear before your eyes, like a turquoise desert, breathtakingly beautiful and dreamlike. But be warned, don't let its beauty deceive you. For the moment you step foot on that land, death will surely come for you. Mubian looked puzzled and asked, "Instant death? Could it be because a ferocious monster lurks in that area?" He hesitantly replied, "No one knows for sure. I've only heard rumors that anyone who sets foot on that land will die mysteriously without any known cause." Beck GI turned to the caravan leader and asked, "Have you ever witnessed the azure sands with your own eyes, sir?" He replied definitively, "Yes, I have." Flipping through his worn journal, he recalled the terrifying scene from years past. Those dreadful azure sands were once just a step away from me. It was vast, like an endless ocean. I was terrified by the sight. He spoke with caution, his voice laced with worry. Even though we navigate by the stars, the green sand can still appear without warning, like a mirage. We must all be extremely vigilant. Parker was distracted, lost in thought about the mysterious green sand. Suddenly, his face paled, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. Panic edged his voice as he blurted out a question, leaving everyone confused. "It seems something's gathering around the fire." Everyone jumped to their feet. "Green sand? We have to get out of here." His trembling voice, filled with terror, rang out again. "What is it now?" Before them stood a gigantic scorpion, monstrous in size. Burang immediately recognized the creature. They're devious monsters, always travel in packs. Meanwhile, Parker trembled with fear. It was so close, and I didn't even notice. Immediately, she summoned her weapon, consoling herself that there was no way to foresee this, because they move underground so stealthily. They must have been tracking our every move all day, watching us like we were their next meal. Byron stepped forward, letting out a roar to announce her presence. "Damn it, I'll distract them. Everyone, quickly wake up the others." She bravely charged forward, provoking the scorpions. "Come out, you stupid scorpions." Byron swung her staff powerfully at a scorpion, trying to get their attention and buy some time. She gritted her teeth, glaring at the scorpion with a fierce, murderous look. In a flash, Byron unleashed a magical attack, landing a direct hit on the lead scorpion's head. Fortunately, the blow crushed the scorpion's head, leaving it stunned and immobile on the ground. Russell yelled, ordering a retreat. "Retreat. Don't fight these monsters. Get out of here now." Amidst the chaos, as people scattered and fled in panic, Parker couldn't help but wonder, calling out to Mabian, "Shouldn't we be lending a hand instead of just standing here and watching?" Mabian seemed unconcerned by Parker's words, replying indifferently, "Perhaps. I see no reason to get involved in this. That young woman is fighting quite well on her own." Parker chuckled, retorting sarcastically, "Don't you think you're being a bit too apathetic? This is about people's lives." Mobian's expression remained unchanged as he coldly jerked his chin forward. Look, it was Burong. She was full of fighting spirit, relentlessly attacking the swarm of scorpions before them. Mabian spoke, as if he had foreseen everything. "She'll be more furious if we interfere." Parker observed the situation and sighed in defeat. He's right. He continued to analyze. What we need to do now is find a way out. Just then, terrified screams echoed repeatedly. A swirling green sandstorm was rapidly approaching from the other side, not just from the west, but from the east as well. The caravan leader looked around, his voice filled with panic. "Good heavens! entire caravan is surrounded by endless waves of flowing green sand. And Jenip cried out in terror, tears welling up in her eyes. Uncle, without hesitation, Russell pleaded with the mages. Please, erect a protective barrier. A blonde-haired mage looked hesitant. Wait, in this critical situation, shouldn't we try to escape? He quickly explained. It's precisely because of this dire situation that I request a barrier be erected immediately. We're completely surrounded. There's no escape route. Our only hope lies in the power of magic. After assessing the situation, the caravan leader made a decision. If we use a barrier spell, the green sand won't be able to reach us. We just need to hold out inside the barrier and wait for the green sand to recede. The young mage was stunned by the audacious proposal. Wait, you mean wait until this green sandstorm passes? How long will that take? The man calmly held up 2 fingers. At least a day. If it's worse, it could be several days. The mage roared in frustration. Damn it, do you think I'm a dragon? I can't hold out that long, let alone a day. Even half a day would be nearly impossible. Moments later, Soneo rushed over, desperately pleaded with the mage for help. Reluctantly, the young man let out a sigh. There's no other way. Please, just do your best. The man commanded firmly, bury all the crabs under the sand and tell everyone to huddle together as close as possible. The young mage stood tensely before everyone, preparing to cast the barrier. He watched as the swirling green sand enveloped nearly the entire desert, worry gnawing at his insides. This is a special type of sand capable of destroying any AI that touches it. Josmark worried about SDO. This kid, once the barrier is activated, it will be impossible to pass through. Call your teammate back immediately. Mabian immediately agreed. I'll bring her back. Inwardly, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Each member of this group possesses unique skills. No matter how many times he observed them, he still found their combination extraordinary and astonishing. Then, Josmark looked curiously at the blindfolded SDO. Come to think of it, what exactly is this kid's special ability? He had just spoken, but before he could finish, Mabian reported, I've brought her back safely. Seeing Mabian carrying Burong horizontally in one arm, Parker panicked. Did you two just fight in such a short amount of time? He stammered as Bairang's face darkened in anger. Bairang's face and hair were a mess. But Mabian just chuckled dismissively, waving his hand as if nothing had happened. No, I just accidentally cut her hair, trying to stop her. Burong, flustered and embarrassed, said it was an accident after setting the girl down. He casually continued, Sorry, I have this for you. Muime gave Burong a seashell bracelet with a jet black cord. Better than being dead, right? The girl angrily shouted, Shut up. While they were bantering, the blonde-haired mage raised his staff high, yelling, Shield. A circular barrier suddenly appeared, and it continuously expanded, encompassing the entire group. Suddenly, the giant scorpion lunged forward and used its sharp pincers to strike the barrier with tremendous force. It attacked relentlessly, seemingly determined to destroy the defensive layer that the mage had worked so hard to create. The blonde mage anxiously warned, if it keeps attacking like this, the shield won't hold much longer. As he was filled with worry, a calm voice rang out. Don't worry about that. It was the merchant captain, holding his young niece in his arms. The hideous monsters will soon vanish into thin air, in the midst of the silent space. Mystical rings of blue light suddenly appear, hurtling towards the ferocious scorpions. A blinding light engulfs, completely enveloping the menacing scorpions. Soon after, they gradually fade, their bodies seemingly shattering into pieces. Gradually, the giant scorpions turned a sickly green and vanished into thin air. To everyone's astonishment, a wave of emerald green sand swept across the desert, completely obliterating the terrifying scorpions. Parker's trembling voice broke the silence. What was that? How could that happen? Mubian also witnessed the strange phenomenon, but remained calm. Who knows? It's like some kind of plague. Casually strolling towards the barrier, he said nonchalantly, but whatever it is, it can't get past this shield. Parker anxiously warned him repeatedly. It's dangerous. Master Mubian, please step back. Mubian chuckled, reassuring Parker. Don't worry, it's fine. No matter how dangerous it is, it can't penetrate this barrier. Parker was still worried. But what if the shield disappears? Mubian replied confidently. We'll see. Mubian looked puzzled. Why are you so afraid? You can fly and dodge it. Parker was still worried, hesitantly asking again. But what about the others? After a moment of thought, the young man had an idea. When you fly up, take us with you. Saying this, as if he had just come up with a brilliant plan, Mabian confidently declared, "Sounds reasonable, right? Everyone can stack up on top of each other, like climbing a ladder, and then we all fly up together." Parker just sighed in defeat. "I can't carry people who are heavier than me," he retorted. Undeterred, Mabian continued to tease, "I'm just kidding." Amidst the boisterous laughter, Estio suddenly realized something was amiss. Something doesn't feel right. He started sifting through the information he knew. I remember hearing that. Blue sand is an anomalous phenomenon that appears in the desert. Anyone who touches that cursed blue sand will die. So what are we talking about here? Estio exclaimed, startling Josh and Mark, who hastily responded subconsciously. Josh posed a serious question, his voice laced with doubt. "While this protective barrier is active, can any AI get out?" He responded with a grave expression. "Getting out is possible, but returning is absolutely impossible." Stio nodded in understanding and gratitude. "I understand. Thank you for telling me." Joseph offered a cautious warning. "Be extremely careful. Don't step outside the boundary of the barrier. If you step outside..." Before he could finish his sentence, Estel quickly approached the barrier. His sudden action alarmed Joseph, who shouted, "Hey, Estel! Estel!" Estel extended his hand beyond the barrier, directly touching the strange blue sand. Everyone was horrified by the sight before them. He touched the blue sand. Immediately after contacting the blue sand, Estel realized his predict. This isn't some kind of curse. The surprising thing is that Stio's hand is completely fine, unharmed after touching the beach. Sparkling blue sand, the surrounding crowd gasps in astonishment as they witness him completely safe. It's unbelievable. He's completely unscathed. They can't explain it, sweat pouring down their faces. He didn't turn to dust, nor did he die. Did that kid really just touch the blue sand? Just then, Parker intervenes. "You can't go out there." Both Mabian and Nizu are also stepping outside, right behind Steve. They move too fast for him to stop them. Without thinking, Parker rushes after them. "Commander, let us know before you do something like that." Nizu agrees. "That's right, Q." Estelle, feeling remorseful, turns to apologize. He says softly, "We're your teammates, Commander. If you keep acting on your own without telling us, in a dangerous situation like this, it's like you don't trust us at all." I'm really angry. Having barely regained his composure, Parker immediately shifted to a reproachful tone. "And Mubayon too. Even if you were worried about him, how could you just risk following him like that?" Bylan stood behind his defensive shield, speechless. Have they lost their minds? How can they place their trust in someone so easily? She affirmed silently, her expression serious. "In this world, there's no one worth entrusting your life to." Parker looked curiously towards the blue sand emitting a strange light. "But didn't they say this blue sand was cursed? Why does Niju have a strange feeling about it?" "Yes, I've also heard that anyone who steps on it will die." Estio pulled up his blindfold and explained. "That blue sand, it's not actually sand." Parker asked inquisitively. He replied matter-of-factly, "Of course they're bugs." His jaw dropped, stammering, "Bee bugs?" Meanwhile, Mobian reached out his hand, catching a shimmering jade-green bug as it fluttered towards him. Witnessing this strange scene, Parker finally realized something. "Now that I look, they have wings." Nizu exclaimed in astonishment. "Really?" Mobian calmly turned to Estio. "That's why you stepped outside the protective barrier." "But these bugs, do they think?" He calmly explained. "They may look simple, but they actually do think." As if to prove Estio's point, the green bugs trembled and let out tiny cries. "So scary." Aru suddenly appeared. I know them. Parker jumped at his sudden appearance. "You scared me half to death, Master Aru." "Why, you're awake." Aru confirmed. "They're domestic beetles." Parker exclaimed, as if voicing everyone's thoughts. "Why, you're saying what?" The boy continued to share what he knew. "They're cute creatures. They consume the carcasses of dead plants and animals. They dutifully perform their task as nature's cleanup crew, consuming fallen debris and waste to keep the desert clean." "Why do you all look so shocked?" Everyone suddenly falls silent, unsure how to react to this information. Those inside the barrier question each other. "Good heavens, so that blue sand, it's insects. What about the victims up until now? And those monsters from earlier, were they all devoured by those insects? Can we disable the shield now?" The captain is puzzled. "Why aren't they attacking us? Ahuru also appears bewildered by this information. It's strange for them to attack humans. They're usually incredibly lazy. Sometimes they even starve to death from sheer laziness. He seems to have realized something. Oh, I understand now. But who is speaking? Stio began to answer everyone's questions. The main reason is the aggressive behavior of these insects towards other creatures stems from an overwhelming fear that's consuming them. Someone was intently observing the small, blue creature. The blue bug asked, "Are these insects going crazy?" He replied as the barrier slowly dissipated. Yes, they're attacking anything they encounter, as their survival instincts kick into overdrive. Stio, looking somber, lowered his voice. I don't know the exact reason. I think I saw some clues, but they're just fragmented pieces. Mabian, seeing his melancholy, offered comfort. Don't worry too much. Right now, the important thing isn't the bugs. It's you. Parker, cheered up, chimed in. Well said. Since everyone here has been saved from the dangers of that strange blue sand, could he be using intimidation tactics to achieve some ulterior motive, sir? Mubayan deftly dodged the attack, while murmuring, perhaps. Rose. Mark suddenly spoke, his tone full of suspicion. Hold on, kid. How did you do that? He continued to press. The blue sand is a mysterious phenomenon. It's caused countless problems for so many people for so long. Yet you were able to recognize its nature at first glance, and even dispel it so easily. This is hard to believe. The crowd began to stir, doubt rising in their hearts. Come to think of it, isn't this all rather strange? Josh Mark lowered his voice, his expression as if concealing something. I hope my suspicions are wrong, kid. But you seem to be laying a terrible accusation on the boy. Could it be you've learned the forbidden art of necromancy? The forbidden art, despised and condemned by the world? At Jose Mark's words, the image of a terrifying skeleton flashed in everyone's minds. A sinner, to forge a pact with the soul of the departed, to wield dark magic and lead the living to their doom. Is forbidden magic strictly outlawed by the Empire? And should this law be broken, the necromancer who dared summon the dead, along with all those involved, shall face death. Suddenly, a sarcastic voice cut through the air, dripping with disdain. How laughable. I allowed you to speak, yet you spew nothing but foolish drivel. He exclaimed in terror. What, you want to cause trouble? So it's Burang approaching. That's Esto, commander of the Ignis Guild. She stated firmly, a slap in the face to Josh Mark. You just slandered a member of the guild's executive board, a summoner respected even by the royal family, someone even the royal family holds in high regard. Josh Mark was speechless with shock. Executive board member? He paused, then thought aloud. Now that I look, the clothes he's wearing are quite extravagant. He's been wearing them all day. So, it must have a built-in automatic temperature control system. There's no way a rookie soldier would possess such high-grade gear and such a powerful protective enchantment. Ross Mark was sweating bullets, anxiety gnawing at him. Damn it, why didn't I think of this possibility sooner? Are you serious? He stammered, needing confirmation. No, I mean, are you really a member of the Znis Council's executive board? What? Stio replied, the badge on his chest shining brightly. Yes, he answered calmly. Do you still have doubts? Or do I need to provide further proof? That alone was enough to make Josh Mark tremble with fear. That's enough. Bairang's expression showed clear disgust. Just answer honestly when you hear such nonsense. At least show some reaction. Why is he still so indifferent? Why should I? I don't really care. Even so, his words still bothered her. Let me emphasize, you are a member of Ignis's executive board. Byron suddenly flew into a rage at his calm demeanor. Insulting the guild leader is the same as insulting Ignis. You can't let the guild's honor be tarnished. When you're a member of the executive board, her raised voice suddenly softened. Ignis, it's a very important place to me. Ignis is a very important place to me. Parker couldn't help but interrupt. More importantly, Lady Stella, I suggest you take these bugs somewhere else. Sio replied, his tone slightly exasperated. Actually, that's impossible. It seems there's nowhere else for these bugs to go back to. He observed the situation and suggested, I think we should leave here as soon as possible. He calmly pointed out the crux of the matter. Even if we leave, it won't solve anything. The number of panicked insects in this area is increasing. Mabian, with his sharp intuition, quickly pointed out, are you suggesting we search for the source of these sandstorms? Stio immediately agreed. Yes, exactly. Suddenly, a hand went up, indicating a desire to join the discussion. The merchants made their request directly. Can't you escort us all the way there? Yes, aren't you here to work as mercenaries to protect us? Because if not, how can we safely reach the village of the Turkish tribe? He pondered thoughtfully, feeling a bit perplexed. I haven't fully mastered my own powers yet. Perhaps it's best to reach the village first. Stio reluctantly spoke in a soft voice. We have to rely on you again, Anzanip. Then, he turned and walked away, while the insects continued to emit creepy, terrifying sounds. Horrifying. Sko turned away, showing only the back of his neck, but he couldn't hide the utter disappointment on his face. I'm sorry, I can't help you. The small bugs pleaded pathetically. Please save us. Dawn broke, and the sun began to climb higher, casting scorching rays across the desert. The heat blazed across the vast expanse of sand. The group expressed their deep gratitude. We are eternally grateful for escorting us here. Russell smiled, extending his hand and saying, although our Parima Trading Company is but a small group, I assure you of the Parima people's absolute loyalty. He shook hands with Stio, expressing his gratitude. I will never forget the kindness you have shown us. Arjanip popped her head out, announcing their next move. We must continue our journey to the other side of the desert. Other mercenaries will join us. The young girl held a sparkling jade gem in her hands. Here, please take this, and Ginny cheerfully handed him the navigation orb and kindly ends. On your way back, just follow the same path that brought you here. The young girl tried to give him further instructions, adding that there were many great and powerful celestial beings gathered around this area, so he should be careful. Stio expressed his gratitude for the warning and reminded her, and Ginny, you should take care of yourself too. And Ginny was walking with the merchant. The caravan leader looked back and said goodbye. See you again. Thank you for everything. In the village, people were still gathered together cheerfully. The market was bustling with buyers and sellers. Parker approached a villager and politely asked for directions. Excuse me, could I ask you something? We're looking for the Ignis Guild headquarters. Calvin laughed loudly and turned to answer. Ignis, what a coincidence. This unexpected friendliness startled Parker slightly. Hey, buddy, he said as he pointed the way. I'm on my way there to submit a membership A. Let's go. Parker looked surprised, but nodded in agreement. Calvin greeted them warmly. Judging by your attire, I'd say you're members of the guild, right? Who else would be hired by the Turkish branch? Or are you just passing through? Stio answered cautiously. We're here to make a delivery. He spoke curtly, his tone implying more than he said. I suppose I shouldn't pry about that, should I? He replied firmly, his expression unchanged. No, Calvin exclaimed in surprised amusement. You're quite straightforward. He continued cheerfully. It's been a while since we've had visitors in this little town. Us? Parker asked curiously. Really? I heard that merchants come through here pretty often. Calvin elaborated while Esto observed intently. Of course, there are plenty of merchants who come to trade here, but that's different from tourists or casual visitors. It's hard for me to put into words. Can you help him explain it better? When merchants visit this place, they only have one goal, so they feel like longtime business partners. But tourists come here for various reasons, so each visit offers them a fresh experience. Calvin burst into laughter, applauding. Exactly. How can you describe it so well? It's like you can see right through me. Parker asked curiously, so what brings you to this fair? He quickly turned and explained. Our entire town decided to submit a request, and it was you, the understanding one, who stopped it. If it's a serious matter, you don't have to tell us. Calvin cheerfully reassured. Well, I'm the representative, so it's no problem. He repeated in surprise. The representative? He proudly introduced himself. That's right, I'm Calvin from Turkey, the representative of this town. Parker was suspicious. Could the man before him actually be a lord? Calvin scratched his head, confirming Parker's suspicion. Indeed, I am a lord. I'm still not very familiar with all the titles in this empire. Parker thought to himself. I can't believe I just asked a noble lord for directions. Then he suddenly realized that most of the townspeople seemed friendly and approachable. Everyone in the city was so pleasant. Calvin exclaimed, echoing Parker's thoughts. The weather is wonderful today. As they walked, Calvin asked Parker, have you heard about the blue sand phenomenon in the desert? He recounted excitedly, his voice full of enthusiasm. We saw it with our own eyes on the way here. Parker was astonished. Oh no, you actually saw it. As if to surprise Calvin, Parker continued. Not only did we see it, we walked right through it. On foot, he excitedly shared some shocking news. In the vast expanse of the desolate desert, we encountered these tiny creatures. that resembled fireflies, emitting a mystical blue light. Calvin excitedly rushed forward, imitating insect sounds. He seemed to have found a kindred spirit. Everyone rumored it was cursed sand, but they're actually living insects, aren't they? So I wasn't seeing things, but I heard that if you touch them, you'll die instantly. How were you able to cross? Parker chuckled. It's all thanks to our brilliant commander. Calvin also couldn't stop praising him, while Estel remained silently still, truly living up to his XN title. Full of enthusiasm, he suddenly fell silent, sighing. Anyway, the blue sand, no, I should call them insects, they have caused countless casualties and widespread destruction, especially the desert monsters have become exponentially more ferocious and bloodthirsty. Their behavior has also become increasingly erratic and unpredictable, as if they're acting according to a specific strategy. Mubayan, silent until now, also expressed his agreement. I also have a feeling they're intentionally attacking us in an organized way. Calvin looked disgruntled, as if wanting to vent. They're really strange, don't you think? But the townspeople don't believe me. Clearly something's not right. Yet they have no intention of investigating. This made Parker incredibly confused. Didn't you say you were the Lord? Why don't you order them to investigate? He raised a finger, explaining like a man of experience. Forcing people to do things they find hard to believe only invites trouble and ultimately leads to being blamed. That's why I'm on my way, to submit a request to the guild. Calvin asked curiously. I heard the Chain Guild accepts all requests, no matter what they are. Is that really true? Parker looked hesitant, replying uncertainly. If the mission is within their capabilities, they'll surely send someone suitable to handle the problem. However, it's also possible some requests might be rejected. They stood before a magnificent, imposing building, announcing to each other, "We're here." The building's massive doors slowly swung open. A girl with vibrant blue hair offered a gentle smile and a warm greeting. I've been expecting you, Commander. I'm a member of the Management Association, Turkey Branch. My name is Jinju. Mid-sentence, she paused abruptly, then continued in a softer voice. And I also possess an ability similar to yours, Commander. Styo asked curiously. Similar? How so? Jisoo quickly explained. I can infuse my voice with emotions and spread them to those around me. In other words, I have a psychic ability. As everyone watched intently, the young woman assessed herself. My ability is called emotional empathy. Styo seemed more excited than usual. I never thought I'd meet someone with a similar ability. Jisoo shook her head in denial. No, Guildmaster, I can't read minds. My ability isn't that strong, and it doesn't last very long. The girl, filled with admiration, praised him, a true master of psychic abilities. It's an honor to meet you, Guildmaster. After hearing Jisoo's explanation, the young man lowered his head in disappointment. I see. Biko, standing beside them, raised his hand as if to get their attention. I think you should hear our request first. Flustered, the girl said, I apologize, Lord of the Domain. What is your request? Kabine said, I want the AI to conduct a thorough investigation of the blue sands and find out why the insects suddenly reappeared around us. If possible, I hope to gather concrete evidence to prove that the blue sand is actually a type of insect. He let out a hearty, unrestrained laugh. I need to warn all the town residents about this danger. Jisoo curiously spoke up, asking, don't you intend to exterminate them? Calvin flexed his bulging muscles and confidently replied, if we have sufficient evidence and information about their origins, then the valiant warriors of Turkey can handle these insects themselves. The Turkish desert is our homeland. She nodded in agreement without hesitation. All right, I'll take note of your request. He beamed, a bright smile that showed off his strong, white teeth. Everyone, if you encounter any difficulties while you're here, don't hesitate to seek me out. I'll do my best to help. As quickly as a gust of wind, Calvin dashed off, vanishing in the blink of an eye. See you later. His voice echoed behind him. Parker was still reeling from Calvin's strange appearance and abrupt departure. He exclaimed in awe, the lord of this place, he's truly indescribable. He's quite extraordinary. Inside the guild was a vast, expansive space, with seemingly endless flights of stairs, stretching into the abyss. A curious voice echoed before a mystical, circular mirror. So, this is the mirror that imprisons souls. Jinju began to recount what she knew about the enigmatic mirror. It said that the soul within the mirror can change its form, like an imposter. Styo slowly spoke, confirming Indeed, it's currently annoyed because the soul is dormant. Therefore, we must keep it in a quiet place, where no one wanders. Just as he finished explaining, Stio suddenly recalled a conversation he had with a strange, otherworldly creature. There will come a day when the one who seeks her appears. I hope she can awaken from this deep slumber and find true happiness in her life. The young man softly asked, I heard that in the vast Turkish desert, there's a suitable place to keep the mirror. The girl pondered for a moment, then suddenly remembered something. Near that small town, there's an ancient temple that's existed since time immemorial. The guides have always protected and preserved it carefully, so it's definitely a safe place to keep the mirror. However, there's a serious problem now. Jinwoo suddenly remembered the temple and the blue sand, and a feeling of worry arose within him. As the Turkish lord recently mentioned, blue sand and ferocious monsters have been constantly appearing and attacking the area around the temple. The path to the temple has become extremely dangerous, making it so even devout worshippers don't dare go there anymore. Shu looked off into the distance, lost in thought. So that's why he said it's been a long time since he's had any visitors. The image of Kelvin tirelessly training flashed to each. It's truly been ages since a stranger has set foot in our small town. As everyone gathered around the table, she suddenly announced shocking news that made Parker gasp in astonishment. We also found this phenomenon extremely bizarre, so we conducted some preliminary investigations. He spun around, a worried expression etched on his face. But the branch chief in Turkey, isn't the guild forbidden from acting independently without a formal request? Wouldn't that be a violation of guild regulations? Jisoo reported sternly. The chairman has issued an order authorizing us to investigate the unusual activities in the Turkish desert region. As soon as she finished speaking, the group immediately began speculating and thought of Kai. Wait a minute, could that be the reason she sent us here? Mubayan was so irritated that he couldn't control his expression. That damn brat. She's using us, turning us into expendable pawns, and still maintained a perfectly innocent expression. Meanwhile, in Turkey, the twilight was descending, the sky draped in a shimmering cloak of stars. On a crystal-clear window pane, a vibrant green lizard clung silently. Estio lay restlessly in bed beside Myeon, who was fast asleep. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Suddenly, Estio sat up silently. Hastily throwing a cloak over himself, he tiptoed out of the room. He approached the door, his hand on the knob, ready to open it. Just then, Suki's voice unexpectedly called out from behind him. Where are you going? Estio spun around, startled, meeting Suki's gaze. He started to explain, but no words came out. Ignoring the potential danger, Estio stepped out of the room. He replied casually, It's nothing. The boy walked further and further away from the magnificent building, striding diligently down the path ahead. Estio abruptly stopped, as if frozen in place by some unseen force. It seemed he had sensed someone's presence. This place could be dangerous for you. Estio turned around, a look of suspicion on his face. Have you been following me this whole time? So, it's Mabian, the one who should have been asleep for a long time. The man affirmed confidently. That is my duty here. Estio looked puzzled. But what's the fun in shadowing me like this? Mabian bowed slightly, chuckling. If there aren't any battles, what am I supposed to do? Black cat. The cat ignored Estio's words, protesting. I'm not a black cat. Mabian continued to mutter. No matter how dull it is, safety comes first. Hyukmayo, black cat, in Korean. Understanding the situation, he stepped forward and asked in a serious tone, more importantly, this isn't a safe place for a stroll, Mr. Insomnia. What brings you out here at this hour? Estio replied in a calm voice. Mubayan suddenly recalled the scene of blood splattered everywhere. His voice dropped. There are days like this, when the body is exhausted but the mind is wide awake. I can only lose myself in thought. He returned to his usual playful tone, shrugging. So, at times like these, I feel the need to do something. So I hunt. A lot. Suki looked skeptical at what she just heard. Hunt. Mubayan continuously replayed scenes of hunting monsters in his mind. Monsters are everywhere, so I can completely immerse myself in hunting them. Suddenly turning serious, he addressed Estio. After surviving the encounter with the anomaly in the desert, I have a question. Without hesitation, Estio quickly formed an opinion based on the information Mu Bayan provided. He speculated that some kind of artificial intelligence might be behind the monster manipulation, and this mysterious entity has set its sights on the golden dragon, Sahanan. He immediately issues a grave warning regarding the vast and enigmatic Turkish desert, that it could harbor dangers beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, a strange sound startles him, and reflexively, he cautiously surveys his surroundings. Ma Bian swiftly turns, his gaze fixed on the stacks of firewood in the corner of the room. He bellows, "Someone's back there." Behind one of the shelves, something is lurking, flickering in and out of sight. After a moment of hesitation, a small, timid cactus pot emerges. Seeing this, Ma Bian breathes a sigh of relief. "What the? Oh, it's just you, Mr. Cactus," he exclaims. The cactus trembles as it replies, "I think that's my line." "Why are you standing there in the dark like that?" the cactus asks. "I thought you were a monster." Ahuru uses his roots to lift his pot, slowly moving closer to the group. Stio curiously speaks up, asking, "What are you three doing here?" The atmosphere seems pretty tense. Are your dads fighting?" Ma Bian sighed. "No, we're just taking a night stroll." Estio looked worried and turned to Ahuru. Do you want to go back to your family?" Ahuru looked bewildered. "Family," Estio gently explained. "I don't know how you got to Galaxia, but I don't think this is where you truly belong." She kindly asked Ahuru, "Don't you want to go home?" The cactus creature jolted and quickly replied, "No, not at all. I think you misunderstood." Ahuru pointed at himself, a confused look on his face. "My family, can that even be called a family?" He continued sadly, "Anyway, we don't have deep, loving family bonds like you humans do." Ahuru began to tell them about his difficult childhood. "We were born underground in the cold. And after we grow to a certain size, Mother pushes us one by one to the surface. My first memory of the world above is a vast desert, under a scorching sun, hot as a furnace. You don't seem too fond of it." "I hate that silent, sweltering desert." Ahuru recalled the figure of the human who had sheltered him. "And then, by a twist of fate, I was able to travel across the continent. Thanks to a human, you were placed in a pot, put on a wagon, and taken everywhere. But that's also how you lost your family. I don't know where my siblings have wandered off to, or where my mother is now, deep underground." Ahuru poured out his heart. "I long to see them again, but I don't want to go back there." Estio knelt down on one knee, reaching out towards the cactus. "I understand, Ahuru." He nuzzled his head against Estio's hand and said, "That's why I like being by your side like this, Estio." Ma Bian crossed his arms and asked indifferently, "Hey there, little cactus buddy. What are you doing wandering around all alone this late?" Estio gently lifted the small cactus pot into his hands. The cactus mimicked crossing its arms and replied. Estio suddenly disappeared, so I came out to look for him. Estio, touched, said, "Thank you so much, but please don't do that again." Ahuru, still confused about what was happening, listened as Estio explained that it was dangerous for him to go out alone. He kindly instructed, "Next time, please wake someone up or wait until I come back." Hugging the small cactus close, Estio solemnly promised, "I promise to come back as soon as possible." Comforted by the promise, Ahuru softly added, "Understand, you absolutely have to promise." Just then, Ma Bian approached and suggested, "Let's go inside. It's cold out here." Estio spoke, "Ma Bian,